This is the Business Chat Podcast. And welcome to the Business Chat. Thank you for listening, for watching. You can check this out if you're listening, audio podcast, driving safely, of course, on businesschatpodcast.com. My guest today is Angie Bruhn. Angie is CEO and head coach at Elevate Execs. She's a former sales executive at Tesla Inc., and you can check out elevateexecs.com online. Angie, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm fantastic. Drew, I get to hang out with you this afternoon.
Yeah.
Just close my day with you.
It's happy hour, right? Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for taking the time, having this chat. The show, we're really just still developing the format, but one thing's for sure is we like to bring a beer, bring a coffee, give a plug, and hear your story. It's pretty basic, and it seems like this is going to be very familiar to you. It's been good getting to kind of know you, understand your story. So you're pretty active on LinkedIn. And when I was kind of going through the different folks I'd been sort of stalking, right, a little creepy, I was like, man, this lady is from Tesla, and she's got this really neat transition, but also in the Elevate Execs lead line was a bit that I'll get to in a moment that really kind of stuck out to me for this series, for Career Flips. So, but first, before we go to that, I got to say, because I've been talking to some younger entrepreneurs, and it was a funny conversation I had recently where a guy goes, man, you know what? I think I'd really like to work at Tesla. I go, oh, cool. Why? And his pause made me laugh, right? Because he's 23 years old. He goes, well, and I said, because it's kind of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, right? Like, what's going on in there? And I got to tell you, that's the perception. So, Elon's like a modern day Bruce Wayne, right? To everybody, the Batman character. He's a celebrity CEO, but you guys do work at Tesla, just for everybody watching, listening, right? Like, there's actually...
We work. The stories of Elon, like sleeping on the Gigafactory floor are real.
Are real. Okay. Yeah. But there's like an HR department. You guys have KPIs, SOPs, there's boring days. All okay. All right. Just making sure. Cool. But yeah, that is the new gen kind of projection. It's like this new Google. And so you heard it, folks. They work at Tesla. They're doing things. So wonderful.
Work
great.
hard, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, the other bit, like I mentioned, is to bring a drink. So as we say around here, what are you drinking today?
Yeah, so I am actually drinking a blueberry ale, which is from the Atlantic Brewing Company. I actually I spent a little bit of time in Maine in the winter and had just lobster and blueberry beer for 3 days. And so that was all we ate and all we drank. And so when I got home, I thought, oh man, I really need blueberry beer. So I actually had it shipped. Yeah. So
that's tremendous. So that blueberry ale you mentioned is by Atlantic Brewing Company, and that's in Bar Harbor, Maine. I'm saying that right, Angie? Bar Harbor. Great.
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. We'll hold it up again. Let's see that beautiful. Look at that. Wow. That is a blueberry beer. Yeah. Cheers. Yeah. Wonderful. There's the virtual cheers. I'm drinking a Drophead ESB. I didn't know this stands for Extra Special Bitter, and it's not bitter at all. It's wonderful. It's also kind of known as a English style pale ale, if you will. I was picking up a client at Los Angeles International, LAX, and I've heard of this little brewery. So for those of you having a kill time in LA, safely first return your rental car, of course, grab an Uber over to Upshift, and a special shout out to Steve and the guys at Upshift Brewing in El Segundo, California. And again, you can see my lovely business chat mug. Angie will be shipping you one. They haven't arrived yet, but again, a second cheers to you. So yeah, we've got our drink, we've got our intro. And let's get into the story. We're not here to hear Drew chat, and I'll just sip and listen. So the main thing I wanted to talk about, first is give us kind of an overview of Elevate Execs, right? Give me the mission, the why we exist for everybody.
Yeah, so we are on a mission to bring humanity back to business.
Okay.
And we do that through helping leaders reshape the way that they think about life, leadership, and their career in general. So yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do.
That's great.
Yeah, and so, we support leaders. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, because humanity's left business in a little way, hasn't it? Kind of. It's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's making a comeback, right? I think that is one of the things that COVID has, when I think about the positives and all the leaders that I've, connected with over the last 12 months, it's been different, right? I think leaders are starting to understand a little bit about how to lead more empathetically. Sure. And, understand we're all human. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter if we're Elon and walking around in that Batman suit. We are all human. And I think that's one of the positive things that COVID has brought to light for all of us. But yeah.
Yeah, we really, as we were launching this thing, and we were late in doing so, we made a decision we didn't want to give any more press than need be to the dreaded C-19.
Mhm.
However, anytime we bring it up, if there's a light at the end of the tunnel moment, right, something like you said, if there's a positive, we love talking about that.
Yeah.
Because, we're seeing the same thing. I'll just say in my day-to-day that it's had everybody slow down and reflect. So if Elevate Execs, if a piece of what you're bringing to these executives and coaching and training is also seeing that there's been uncovering, right, some problems in business culture. Great. So we were talking, before we hit record on this meeting, there's a lot of coaching out there, and everyone watching this knows that, and I'm excited for them to hear how you are different and what you do, your background. What drew me to you and your profile, and as we got to kind of chit chat back and forth, was one, was your career flip, right? Seeing Tesla and then coach, and not exactly I can't imagine that, transition so much as the line in there was executive career transition. One of the things that Elevate Execs focuses on, I thought, interesting. She's kind of got this business model for something she herself has done. Tell us about that a little bit. Like how does Elevate Execs help executives transition in their career? How would you say that?
Yeah. So, you asked the question, what makes us different?
Sure.
Number one is I've walked in executive shoes, and I've had to think about that and answer the question for myself, what do I want to be when I grow up? Which is what led me into coaching, coming out of almost 18 years in the corporate space. And so I understand the kind of the complexity that happens with leaders when they want to make a transition. An average leader sits for 2 years without taking action, feeling unfulfilled, feeling like they want to make a difference or go make an impact somewhere else.
Yeah.
But they don't have necessarily the right action or know the first step to take an effort to get there. And some of it's fear, some of it's confidence, some of it is needing someone to walk with them on the journey. And that's really for me what's important and how we deliver successfully to help our clients transition.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Walking with them and that. Keep talking. What's that look like to walk with them? Does it kind of blend a little bit with like we're there for you, counseling, coaching capacity? Is this much more of a strategy, kind of a plan to get them that transition, that exit, if you will? How would you put that?
Yeah, it's both, quite frankly. So about 70% of our clients are working within organizations today and have a desire to go out and to do something else.
Sure.
And oftentimes, actually, I say this a lot. If I ever had somebody come to me, Drew, and say, hey, Angie, this is exactly what I want to do and exactly where I want to go, right, I wouldn't know how to help them. So we really specialize in helping folks that are mid to late career, 7 to 15 years left in their career.
Okay.
Yeah. And they want to make an impact. And so, one of the things that I have clients do is really think about, if you're to fast forward that 7 to 12 years and you do a look back and reflect on the impact that you want to make on your life and your career at the end, what do you want that to look like? You're at your retirement party. What do you want that to look like?
That's cool. Help
and then
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, we create a plan around it. So there is a program, right? I mean, it includes things like personal branding, making sure that your LinkedIn and your resume reflect not just a list of skills and accomplishments, but it tells the story of the work that you've done and success that you've had, creating a hit list of organizations that you want to go work for, help building your network within those organizations. So there's, some of the tactical pieces of it, but really, the coaching side and the walk with you on the journey is really about helping people maintain confidence throughout their time in transition. It's, and sometimes that confidence is, unfortunately, we live in a world where recruiters ghost often. Doesn't matter the level. I've worked with, plenty of CEOs and C-level execs that get ghosted by recruiters. And every time that happens, your confidence takes a hit. I don't care how badass your career has been. And so helping people dust off and regroup so they get back on that next call and show up at their best. Sometimes that's part of it. Sometimes it's, it's mindset shift, understanding, like I said, exactly what they want to do and the impact that they want to make at that, towards the end of their career. So that's where the coaching comes in. The program is tactical. But because not any one of us are the same, we're all human, we're all unique. It's a program, but it's fit within the needs of the individual client.
That's tremendous. I mean, so you're covering so many things that are giving a few people listening just like sweaty palms, right? Or their heads are hitting their desk going like, everything you just said is overwhelming. I'm trying to still work in my business, right? In the one they want to leave. And it's a lot, and executives are working 60 hours. And even if they leave the office, right, it doesn't shut off. And they're going, when am I going to approach the plan? How do I start? And you kind of hit everything. But this is why is you're your own test, subject, right? And you're sticking to what you know. And that also drew me to, like I said, our series here of career flips, or we could have put it much better. We could have called it career transitions, as you well put. And that's what it is. And we're hearing from, sales leaders, the guy that said the heck with this, and he's in gourmet donuts in Austin, Texas, right? This seminary student, a younger man that said, yeah, my preaching passion where I've been pouring into seminary, it took me kind of really getting to the end of that line to go, I have this other passion. I saw it as a hobby, but some outside voices, some neat stories. And now with yours, I want to talk about your kind of transition or the flip, as we were calling it in this series here, from your background, right? We see Solar City, Tesla. I went back further to see Starbucks. Tell me about, because it doesn't necessarily need to be a painful story right here on the show. We're just interested in folks that decide to make that change, and kind of tell us about, your corporate sales life before Elevate Execs and why you made this change.
Yeah, and I would say in response to the needing to be painful, none of the transitions that I had were painful, right?
Good.
For me, there's a few things that I know were really important in any organization that I worked for. One is I'm a mission gal. Like, I've got to feel really aligned to the mission of any organization. I don't necessarily have to be aligned with the widget and the gidget that's being sold, but I have to be aligned with the mission and what the company is, and the culture of the organization. That was important to me. And so even early on, I mean, I went to school to be a third grade teacher, which, by the way, now that I'm being, teaching my son his third grade math, I thank God I didn't do that. But I fell in love with the business world, working for Best Buy, and that's where I started my career, and spent quite a bit of time there, and got my first shot at leadership.
Yeah.
In my mid-20s, I was leading a team of 300 people, first shot at understanding P&L and ROI and all that, KPIs and all that good jazz, right? And then went to work, decided I wanted to try something different. And I went to work for Under Armour and built out Under Armour's retail division.
No kidding.
With them. Yeah, and it's a really long story how I got there, but I was like, I said I'm a mission gal. I also love CEO stories. And so I fell in love with Kevin Plink's story and how he got to where Under Armour to where it was.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I want to work for that guy. And so I submitted my resume, 30 different random jobs, until someone called me back and was like, what do you want to do here? And I said, I want to build out your retail division. So, so that's what brought me actually out to the East Coast from the Midwest. And so I spent a couple of years there, went back to Best Buy for a bit, then went to work for Starbucks. And had this moment at Starbucks where I was watching. And Starbucks, that move was, I wanted to try a different industry.
Okay.
And I remember watching Howard. I was in Seattle, and I was listening to Howard Schultz, and we were at a conference. And I remember thinking, God, he is an incredible leader, an incredible visionary. Yeah. But I thought, I can't align myself with the mission, and if I can't, I have no business at leading a team here. And so I went out to determine where can I go and align myself again with a mission. Right. And at the time, I just bought a house, and I was researching solar, and had made a decision to put solar in my house, and fell in love with Elon's story and all of that. And Solar City was a sister company of Tesla, right? Acquired later, but
sure.
But yeah, so I went from leading a team of a few hundred people across the Mid-Atlantic to being an individual contributor. Okay. And and was like, I'm going to take this risk. And my partner at the time, he says, you got to be kidding me. Like, we just bought this house. We have 2 kids in daycare. And you're going to do this. And I said, yeah, I am. And I did. And I wouldn't change the years that I spent between Solar City and Tesla for the world.
Right.
But yeah, then there came a time where I said, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Yeah.
Like, this is it. And in reflection, we went through a lot of restructures, And in reflection of my career, the two areas that I really gained the most fulfillment from was really in business development and leadership development.
Nice.
And yeah, I don't, within my roles, I did a lot of work with like DEI groups, ERG groups, different things, even just as extracurricular to help, leaders on a broader scale, but all within the organizations that I worked for. And I thought it's going to be my opportunity to be able to help leaders on a broader scale,
Right,
across across industries. So yeah, so
I love the way you tell the story too, because it's almost like you could make this, whimsical, like short comedy, romantic comedy. I don't know, but Angie's just, picks up her coffee cup, Starbucks. That's an idea. And next scene, you're in the apron, and then, a Tesla drives by. That seems cool. It seems like you just sort of, as things come, through your life, you were just like, this seems great, and took a lot of risks, and leaps. So very cool. Wow, that's great. That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. The other thing that stood out, what you just said, and for those listening and watching, we are still figuring out what we want to do, right, in life. We get into our 30s, and we're told, not intentionally, I think, again, and maybe in leadership, I think just in higher education is what you went to school for, it's what you studied. So, make us proud. And I think a lot of folks need to know that the Angie Bruhns out there still today are going, I really want to do it with my life, right? That never really seems to go away, at least for me. I don't know. Love that you highlight that continued through your 20s and 30s and achieved success. It still started going, wow, I think I'm capable of more, kind of, right? So very cool. Okay, cool. Well, so here we are talking about this arrival, this switch to Elevate Execs. And you said nothing was painful for you, right? It wasn't I really hate what I'm doing. There was just some cultures that you went, no, I pretty much have figured out if I can't be behind that and be passionate about, and at least in alignment, right, with what their overall mission statement is, their culture even, then it's not a fit. And I think that's great for anybody in career life. I think you can find fulfillment, really cut your teeth on something good as a creative on the very technical side, right? Somebody can work with their hands. And as long as I think the culture is there and the humanity is there with the business culture and leadership, I've been seeing more and more friends of mine, colleagues that are going, man, I'm surprisingly missing that other job I was at, right? Here I am in this hyper-focused thing that I'm here, and it's very underwhelming. But do you feel as though, to speak about Tesla in your final, years, months there, it was more or less you going, I think the next step for me is to start my own business? Or was there more or less a sense of, hey, I've exhausted what I can do in the role? Which was it for you? Was it kind of looking forward, or just kind of feeling as though your time had passed with the
great question.
Yeah.
So, no secret that Tesla, we went through a ton of restructures.
Mm-hmm.
And in one, we had a couple that were really big that affected the energy division more than the rest. But there came a point in my last year, 18 months, I found myself talking to my peers and saying, hey, you should really think about what you want to be, what you want to do when our time at Tesla comes to an end. It's not necessarily the organization that you go when you retire. It is, you grind it out, you fulfill a mission, you work super hard.
Sure.
And then there comes a point where you say, okay, what am I now going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was, I remember that I sat and I thought, because I thought I should probably figure that out for myself, right? Like you tell everybody else, but I should probably figure that out for myself. And I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was doing that reflection. I wrote out like business development, leadership development. And I thought I could go to Apple or Microsoft or, go, right. After working in the companies and the industries that I did, but where else could you go and be as challenged as you are by working for an organization like Tesla or for someone like Elon? You are your biggest critic, always, right? And so literally in my mind, I thought the only place I could go and be as mentally challenged is if I do this myself. And that's when I said, this is what I'll do. So actually it started working. I'd started working through my certification, my coaching certification, while still working for Tesla. And did that for about a year. Okay. And then at the time, when my time came, we had a final restructure and had some options, and I made the decision to step out and to start my own coaching practice full time. Nice. And make the leap at that point. Yeah.
Great segue into the next question I had was, okay, so, and I hear what you're saying, and that's been, that's pervasive in the culture of folks that have come in and exited Teslas. They kind of go, what just happened for the last 3 to 5 years? I'm spinning still. And same goes for folks that have gone into these accelerated, units within, right, Google and Apple and technology. And like you said, renewables, it's just, there's not really a weekend and you're just on all the time. And that's great. Those industries are in unique changes right now too. For you, did you feel like when you went into Elevate Execs, something you'd been thinking about, did it feel like things kind of had to slow down and like you hit the brakes, right, and everything in the car comes flying forward? Or was it a nice transition and you've been on your conveyor belt's been going the same speed the whole time? How's the speed kind of felt for you since you switched?
Yeah, Drew. No, it's not a smooth sailing. I mean, listen, there's things about entrepreneurship that they don't teach you, right? And there's things about coaching that they don't teach you,
Yep.
right? Like there's a lot of people who wake up and say, okay, I want to be a coach because I want to make an impact. And understanding then I was actually having this conversation with a gentleman who had gotten into some consulting work last night, actually. Okay. And he said, yeah, I couldn't make it. The problem is, I don't care what business you're in, 80% of the work is business development.
Correct.
Right? It's going out and you've got to build your business. And I think in the space for a lot of people, they want to fulfill a passion. And that passion, like for me, like I want to help leaders. There's I want to coach. That's what I want to do. But in reality, it's 30% of my time. The other 70% is I got to go find those people, right? Who want to be coached. I got to find those people who want to make a difference and invest in their professional development. Find those people who are ready to take the step in career transition. And so with that business development comes all kinds of bumps and bruises and trips and falls and scrapes. And you make mistakes. And so, from a mindset perspective, you build a lot of grit. You've got to have the ability to be able to take the bumps and get back up and keep on going. And yeah, so it's been, yesterday was actually my 2-year anniversary.
I saw that. Congratulations. Yeah. On LinkedIn. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 full years, full time in this, and where I expected the coaching practice to be is nowhere. It's not anywhere designed anywhere today. The way that I had originally envisioned 3.5 years ago when I said, this is what I'm going to do. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not a steady pace. It is like you said, right? Like you slam on the brakes and everything goes forward, right. Ease off. And yeah. So,
I mean, and I can relate to some of the things you're saying as an entrepreneur myself that would never have called myself that, by the way. It was much more, it was a survival element. There was a pivot. There was a what I want to do. And a little bit to my dismay and disadvantage, I wasn't as tactical, wasn't understanding that it's all sales and business development. It's all systems admin. You don't know you're even building a system when you're building a system as a freelancer going, I think I've got too many clients and I'm not spending time with my family. I think I've built something here. And a lot of freelancers I'll even speak to for a moment, hearing what you're talking about, Angie, about that switch, and they jump, right? They look at Upwork, look at LinkedIn and go, I'm going to jump into the sphere of being a consultant, being a coach. And Angie and I are here to encourage those of you that want to do that. But the point I think she's making and that I'm agreeing with her is, reach out, get help, tell people you're about to, because it's a rude awakening if you've not done that before. It doesn't need to be painful. And I'm, sitting here talking with Angie today about a success case, and again, congratulations on 2 years of this. The other thing you're being very humble about is you've found success for others already, right? A couple seconds on that. I mean, it sounds like that you're able to help a lot of people to date already at Elevate Execs.
Yeah. Thank you. We've been able to support somewhere around 200 leaders in transition so far in a 2-year period.
Wow.
And it feels good. That 200 number, it's about 70% is career transition. The other 30% is through executive coaching, right? And helping leaders lead through crisis, lead through change, lead through, help them elevate their executive presence, that kind of stuff. But to know that people, like, there's a few things that we say, right? One of them is, I never want to send a broken leader into an organization. So heal the leader first before they go in. And that oftentimes that comes from they've been laid off due to restructure, COVID. Obviously, we saw a lot of that. And it's emotional, right? Heal the leader first, then prepare them for their transition and get them in the right headspace so they can show up at their best in interviews and then enter into the new organization strong. And that's probably for me what's been the most fulfilling, is knowing that we've been able to accomplish that.
Awesome. Yeah, there's so many capacities to what you do. We could have a part 2, right? We need to have another episode on this. So thank you for that last comment. The other thing that, we were talking about again a little bit before we started here, that I want to have you expand on, is kind of what did you learn then, as we've seen both pictures, this wonderful story of meandering through careers and growing and understanding where you could get behind something and not. And here you are running Elevate Execs, having a lot of success. It's somewhere different than you predicted. All those things that we can, those of us in startups and in transitions and flips can relate to. What are you noticing from day to day that your time stocking those CDs at Best Buy, right? Or remember those days?
Yeah,
the CD.
I do.
That's where I bought my CDs, man. Where you're, now you're leading teams. You were leading teams in the corporate world is the point, right? And now you've flipped a bit, and it's a very similar. You're sitting on the other side of the desk, looking at yourself in a way. Is kind of a question like, what are you going? Oh my goodness, there's so many things I never could have predicted that at Solar City and Tesla have prepared me and led you, but it prepared you for the skills. That 2% of like only a few people really know how to talk to this man or woman right now that's pouring their heart out, going, I'm really struggling with this thing. But yeah, talk about that for a minute. How again, like your career wasn't, flips weren't painful. Those things fed into who you were. And I think it's helpful for people to understand that are in those jobs today. They're hearing this going, I think I'm in like Angie's Starbucks stage where I can't get behind the mission and I have a vision for something else. Some encouragement to them in your own words, your story of how those things still helped enrich who you are today and what you do.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One is, for sure, my own transitions help me effectively help others transition, right? So I've been through restructures, so I understand from a mindset and just the emotional drain that can take on somebody. So I can empathetically coach them,
right?
But I also come from leading leaders in really highly innovative, fast-paced organizations, right? And so when it comes to transitions, as an example, and helping leaders through that, it's like, I'm not going to let you wallow in your sorrow because you were just laid off.
Sure.
And I tell people this before they sign with me. I say, I'm not here to be your cheerleader, man. I'm here to help you hit your objective, right? And I talk a lot about outcome-based coaching. Like, I'm not your fluff gal. I'm a type A personality. Like type A, I am a highly documented.
So when you close those doors, you're like, listen, I'm Angie from Tesla. If you thought you're here there's no Kleenex in my office, get the heck out of here.
Well, now
I'm kidding. Yeah.
So yes, but but it's like, I want you to show up at your best, and I want you to do it in the time frame, right? Sure. And like I said earlier, like heal the leader, and then help them transition.
Mm-hmm.
And but we got to do that at a pace,
sure,
that makes sense, right, and not dwell in one area or another for too long. And so that has learning that skill from these organizations that I work for, and the pace, and you don't have time to cry in your beer. Too much is one of the skills. The other thing is, because I've been leading leaders for so long, especially in the executive coaching program, I talk a lot about outcome-based, right? So I'll break down with leaders, what do you have to accomplish in Q2? And then how do we elevate the leadership competencies that we need to elevate for you, that will help you drive those outcomes that you need to drive it in the quarter. Right. And I think because for me, I've ran multi-million-dollar P&Ls, right? It's easier for me to be able to connect with people and speak the language for these executives. I've like I said, I've walked with them, right? And that helps us get outcomes faster.
And that last bit about helping them with the objectives, right? You're there, and you are very type A, by the way, in case anyone asked, or curious. That's exactly who you are. You know yourself pretty well. That is, would you say that that doesn't take away from bringing humanity, bringing a bit of the piece that that element of saying, look, like we need to bring humanity, the human element back to the workplace. I don't hear you saying you're being tough with them, but where you said I'm not their cheerleader, I'm maybe unpack that for a couple more seconds, because I'm intrigued, because I would think, right, again, I'm the guy I'm totally out at your space, but I'm going, oh, there's probably some pats on the back and it's okay, hang in there, and you're going, nope, none of that. Why that a little bit? How does that contribute to them getting back on their feet and still you're not being tough, right? It's not a whip, it's you going, what you need is objective drive from me, from Angie, from Elevate Execs. Why that angle?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. First, I want to start with saying humanity doesn't have to be soft.
Ah, there it is. Okay.
Right? So sometimes leaders want to stay away from that because they think, well, if I'm human, if I bring my human side, or if I didn't say the word humanity,
sure.
Or, think about, I come from a time, I'll be 43. Okay. So
wow, I thought we were leaving age out of this. Everyone's going to ask how old I am now.
Well, I'm telling you that because I come from the time of in the corporate world, you stuff your emotions in a bottle and
Correct.
You tighten that bottle real tight and nothing gets in and nothing gets out.
I'm good, right? I'm good. We're good. We're great.
I'm good. I'm tough, right? I'm Elon Musk, superhero, Batman.
I don't sleep. I'm great. Yeah.
Yeah. And, but my point is, having humanity or leading empathetically does not have to be soft. Sometimes those tough conversations are human. So as an example, I could talk a lot about the 1% rule. Okay. The 1% is oftentimes when we're giving critical feedback, if I'm coaching you, Drew, and there's, something I want to say to you about your performance, your leadership ability, etc., but I'm afraid it might hurt your feelings, or I'm afraid it's not the politically correct thing to say, I'm going to leave that 1% down. I'm only going to give you the 99%. But what if that 1% changed your career? Sure. What if I gave you that 1%? You said, well, okay, I get it now, and I'm going to make a change.
Sure.
And so, when I say humanity back into business, it doesn't mean that you have to go soft, right? And so hopefully that answers that. Secondly, I'm not here to be the cheerleader. Now, pat on the back and hey, you got this.
Yeah, get back out there and all that, right?
I'll get back out there, right? That's what I mean by that, right? And that coaching comes in all kinds of different ways. But
cool.
But I'm not here to just say everything you do is great.
Right.
That's not. You don't hire me to say that.
The 1%, that's something I think we're suffering from as a culture. Maybe humanity, maybe it's the West, right? Is this, as I talk to folks all over the globe now, never could have predicted that either. And I get the comments. They go, a guy will lean in, and from all over Australia, India, South America, they go, you do know you guys like dance around the topic a lot, right? That's because I was joking with a friend of mine in Russia that said, I said, well, what about us makes us so American? And he, and in his own way, and I'm not trying to completely unpack this one thing this gentleman said, he said, you guys take a long time to say something simply. And I went, it's so basically what you mean is expletive, and he laughed, is we BS, right? And we do. And I think a piece of what you're doing at Elevate Execs is going, look, I'm able to give you the 1% that the HR rep's not going to give you. They can't give you. That's not their role, or they're just unable to do it or whatever, right? Am I saying that right? The 1% is a little bit, it's like this, it's going to sting. This could sting a little, but this is going to be helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, going back to differences, because, a lot of, and nothing against the HR world, because they are
nothing at all. Nothing
amazing.
At all. Yeah.
But a lot of executive coaches come from the HR background.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And that's a difference for me, is I don't. And so, I've had HR business partners that I adore, and I've had HR business partners that do not adore me. Mm-hmm. And that's for sure. Right. Okay. In my business world. Yeah. But, I don't come from that space. And so for me, it's second nature to just say, Drew, like, suck it up, man. Like, not really.
You suck it up, and then, swipe your card. Here you go. That was good. That's your session. No, I love it. It's Angie. Thanks. I mean, with the other thing I was going to, ask, as we're winding this down, and you can see this is fun, right? We could just keep doing this for another hour. Well, so folks that are engaged, leaning in, they're still watching the video. They're still with us. They're wondering, like, what's next for Angie? Because you just painted this picture of something changes with you every 3 to 5, 10. I didn't really count. And in those working Elevate execs are going, oh no, she's like, this is almost over. That's not my question. My thing is, what's next for Angie in terms of what's on the horizon for Elevate execs? What do you see, maybe in a broad sense as the next frontier for you? As now you've claimed the 43-year-old Angie, that is, or almost 43. What's coming next? Name some things, just kind of rapid fire. What do you see coming? A few challenges, things you want to see and do? Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to fill some gaps in the market, specifically around career transition and supporting organizations, as opposed to the individuals greater with outplacement services and search. So we see a major gap in the market in those areas, right? So as an example, I'll have, and this happens probably about 60% of the time, clients who are laid off to a restructure or organizations lay them off, pay an outplacement service. That client still comes and pays me to take them across the finish line because there's tons of gaps.
Okay.
And so, for me, I want to fill the void there. I mentioned earlier, we have this issue with search and, executives that don't get a call back. And there's, we talk about bringing humanity back to business. I don't know that people are understanding how much that impacts the individual on the other side. Like their client is the organization, but there's still a human in front of you. Right. And so those are a couple areas that around the career program specifically that we're looking to expand. So we're expanding the team in that area to support that.
Great.
And then DEI initiatives. So I've done a lot of work in my corporate time around in different ERG groups and DEI work, as I mentioned. And so for me, that's where I'm going to kind of plant my feet and spend some more time in effort to fulfill that mission that I talked about earlier.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's a couple things.
Just a couple, right? You have a lot going on. My goodness, that was fun. Again, a final virtual cheers to you, young lady, with your blueberry beer on East Coast on Eastern time. Thank you. ElevateExecs.com. You guys can visit the website today, those of you watching and listening. Angie Bruhn was our guest. Thank you, Angie. And special thanks to Upshift and Atlantic Brewing Company. Check those out on your way out. And again, it was a pleasure. This was super fun. Let's stay in touch. All the best to you. All right, Angie, take care. Thank you.
All right, Drew. Bye for now.
Bye.